sufficient?
After the last two PDs, we really hadn't sort of really understood the idea of automatising, and our staff were struggling to understand moving beyond scaffolding and cueing the kids. So our prep teacher, in her teaching session, came up with this poster, and she spoke with the kids about what getting knowledge meant, and then she asked them what symbols they could develop with her and a laptop sitting there on the floor that would remind them of those particular strategies. And so she's come up with, look at the front cover, discuss what do you see. And she's got there a book of pirates and a magnifying glass and somebody looking through it. So that symbol to the kids means, look at the cover of the book and start thinking about what it means. The next symbol they come up with was the visualise. So there's a pirate with a thinking bubble and a pirate ship inside. Then there's the brainstorm one, so the word pirates and arrows all around there. So she actually, and the last one is predict, so she's got a crystal ball with some pirates sitting inside it. So the kids came up with these. She went away after sort of scribbling them out and making pictures and actually made the poster and came back the next day and used it in a scaffolding lesson. And then yesterday, she sent off her lowest prep group with that cue card and said, right, you guys, here's your cue card that we came up with. Here's your poster paper, here's a texter. You need to go away and use this text to brainstorm. They were the only cues she gave them. So off they went with their texter, their cards sitting on the floor, and they've come up, and the text was called Haunted House. She actually clipped the book together so they couldn't open it, and they've come up with that this book is about spider webs, freaky, creepy noises, monsters, trees that look like witches, and skeletons. And so that's after just a little bit of scaffolding, developing their own picture cues as to what the strategies mean for the preps, and then they did that yesterday. And she was absolutely ecstatic because this is the group that normally is climbing under the floor and in the book corner when she's trying to run a guided reading session. So we were quite excited about that. So that's really trying to move towards building it in so that it's not always teacher directed. At the other end of the school, we're doing natural disasters, and so we sat down and wrote a whole series of scenario cards with picture prompts based around the high reliability. So this one, for example, talks about displacement and using your meaning-making motor of what displacement might mean. Getting knowledge ready, there's just a cover of a text on there, natural disasters. What questions might this book answer? There's a house about to be burnt down in a suburban street. Visualise yourself living across from the street. What happened 5 minutes before this photo was taken? What will happen in the next 5 minutes?
So that's great inferencing. Very good for inferencing.
It's also good in that it's not, because for us it's always, once we did our audit, we sort of really looked that it was all teacher directed. We still hadn't moved beyond that. Whereas this way, these now are in our rotations. Yeah. It's also in our homework matrix, and the kids just take them and they're hearing the same terminology, the same things, and taking it from different ways. So we were really wrapped with those.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Rose. I'm sure someone else mentioned they'd try something. I might be mistaken. Anyway, let's then continue. The next aspect of that I'd like to talk about, probably about 10 or 15 minutes, is how do you put in place in your school a climate for professional learning? So we've said we're keen on a professional learning community where we're clear on what the learning would look like. The next thing we need is a climate. We need a learning climate or a learning culture. We hear a lot about cultures, culture and performance. What would a learning culture look like? What would what would the climate have to be to get learning? Before we go through the content, what might you suggest? We've got the blank slate, guys. You got on.
Trust.
So one issue is going to be trust. Trust and respect. We're not going to have a learning culture if we haven't got trust and respect.
Need a common vision or
So we need to work out the common vision. In one way, the culture needs to allow that to come out, doesn't it? The culture needs to say, we need to allow this to happen. The culture needs to encourage moving towards that. Some other things.
Collaboration.
It needs to allow collaboration. We're not going to get the learning community, the high reliability strategies, the sharing of the knowledge without collaboration. Go on. So it needs to foster developing a purpose. It's not the purpose itself, it needs to allow the purpose to emerge. And I guess we'd be pushing for it to allow a negotiated purpose, a purpose that really looks as though it's going to work for everyone, not for individuals. Some other aspects of a climate. So think of contexts in your past where you have felt you're in a school that's really modifying its teaching and working well, as opposed to a school where you're not allowed to take risks, you're not encouraged to change, or else there's no integrated approach to improvement at all. Okay, risk-taking and as part of the trust, so there needs to be trust and also risk-taking. That's great, thanks. Yeah, go on.
The mentoring, the whole mentoring coaching, so that there's that safety kind of net for under the risk.
So for the risk-taking, there needs to be a net, because as teachers, we need some way. I mean, we don't know how these things are going to go, and we need to be able to, if in fact things do go a bit haywire, we need to be able to get them back into place as quickly as we can. So we need the mentoring, and along those lines, the climate also needs to allow mentoring to occur. Other things.
Debate and challenge.
So there needs to be the opportunity for debate, dialogue, for challenging of ideas and reflection. So the climate, the culture, needs to encourage reflection. People need to be interested in the reflection that's going on.
Staff commitment.
Okay, so the climate needs to almost foster staff. It needs to lead to commitment. It needs to encourage commitment. Okay, any others? Go on.
Not prescriptive, just like the students learn in different ways, teachers teach in different ways.
Very important. There's non-prescriptive. You could be prescriptive in saying all the kids need to learn to paraphrase. That's right, but non-prescriptive in how it's done. Let's go. Yep. It needs to really validate the sharing of knowledge and really building a group knowledge. Okay, in the notes, and we can move through this. Oh, well, I'll leave that up there because